What's up, motocross action? For today's video, we have a 1994 Honda CR125 two-stroke restoration project. We found a deal on this bike that didn't run and it was in bad shape, but we saw potential and decided to invest our time and money into it. The engine looked intact, the frame had been oddly chromed, but was straight and crack-free. The owner wanted only $600 and we gladly gave him the money. Our 1994 Honda CR125 project started off great. We had the idea of replicating the flo-neon pink and yellow colors of the historic Works Connection logo from back in 1989. The frame was in good shape structurally, but the chrome finish wasn't. Our first thought was to strip it down and paint it white, but we know the best polisher in town at All American Polishing. We let them do the dirty work on the chrome and it came back in pristine shape. Even if the chrome finish turned out well, the hardcore MXA test riders thought it was desperate looking, but we eventually convinced them that the flow yellow colors would accent the chrome tubing. With the frame back from polishing, the hard work began. We tossed out the outdated 1994 Showa forks for a set of 2008 CRF 450 forks. We had Racetech revalve the stock shock and update the Showa forks to work in unison. Of course, the 2008 CRF 450 forks didn't fit in the 1994 CR125 triple clamps. Applied Racing CNC machined us a custom set of triple clamps to accept our fork updated triple clamps. Since the clamps had to be built from scratch, we had Applied drill out the front fender bolt holes to accept the 2016 CRF 450 front fender because we like the look. At this stage, everything was going okay. Not great, but beyond the realm of a typical resto-mod of a 26-year-old motocross bike. Luckily, three things have happened since the 1994 Honda CR125 rolled down the assembly line. First, the used bike market has boomed. Second, the two-stroke resurgence caught everyone by surprise. Third, the effect of the boom and surge convinced aftermarket companies that there was a demand for replacement parts for bikes as old as the sport. That was a blessing for MXA's 1994 Honda CR125. With the help of Wrench Rabbit, we had most of our engine needs covered. They made a simple engine kit with all the needed parts under one part number. The kit includes a hot rod crankshaft, main bearings, Vertex piston, transmission bearings, and all the gaskets you need. The parts we had to source off eBay and Craigslist were the airbox, axles, fuel line, and chain guide. We got burned on a few parts from unscrupulous sellers in those private party deals, so finding good, used CR125 parts bogged down the building process. The CR125 cylinder and head were salvageable, and we always have great luck with Millennium Technologies when we give them our tired, poor, and huddled parts yearning to breathe at 10,000 RPM again. Millennium took our wretched CR125, replated the cylinder, and cleaned up the head. Next, we sent the replated parts to Tom Morgan Racing to coax up some more power out of the old engine. Tom cleaned everything up and did some light porting on the cylinder. Our project was on time, everything was flowing perfectly, so we tore down the entire bike to nothing and started building it back up. We didn't leave a stone unturned, or at least we thought we didn't. The carburetor was rebuilt with all balls parts. UFO still makes old model Honda plastic, and we went with its white plastic kit. Decal Works set us up with our neon color scheme for the graphics. Myler's rebuilt and reinforced the old radiators, and one thing that was on our hate list as far back as 1994 was the incredibly narrow stock foot pegs that came on Hondas back then. No aftermarket company makes wide foot pegs for a 1994 CR125, so we dug through a big box of foot pegs in the MXA warehouse, and by mixing and matching a selection of old pegs, we found a set of Scar titanium KTM pegs and springs that fit the CR125 like a glove. Rolling any restored motocross bike out into the sun for the first time is an emotional moment. However, after all our hard work, the 1994 Honda CR125 looked hideous. But hey, we all make mistakes. All that really mattered was how it performed on the track. With the FMF bolt-on power mated to the Tom Morgan tuned engine, our CR125 sounded crisp on the stand. It looked great on the track. It looked great on the track when the first MXA test riders started to spin laps on it. We swear that we could see a big smile on his face from behind his 6D helmet. That is, however, until the bike rolled to a silent stop and the engine had lost compression. Our maiden voyage only lasted 15 minutes. There was the usual amount of finger pointing. Was it our fault? Did Tom Morgan go too far with his modifications? Did we mix a C12 too lean? So we tore down the engine and didn't find find anything suspect, just a badly damaged cylinder and piston. A month went by before we got the bike back together again. We had the cylinder replated once again and had Tom inspect his prior work. The bike was put together and everything looked as it should. It was the day of reckoning for the CR125. We had the MXA wrecking crew there to put the CR125 through its paces once again. The first MXA test rider roared off down the straight and disappeared over the first big hill. And that was the last we saw of him, until he came rolling down the backside of the hill with a dead engine. Boom went the engine for the second time. Everyone involved with the project was stumped, frustrated, and embarrassed. We were breaking the bank with this build. There were test riders who wanted to shelve the project because it was taking up too much time for what there was to gain, but we couldn't stop now. We had some of the best hands in the business work on our 1994 Honda CR125, and something was still missing. Again, the engine was tore down. This time, we looked at each piece with a magnifying glass. We knew the engine was getting hot, and we had some expensive aluminum paperweights to prove it. But why? We checked the rebuilt Myler's radiators, water hoses, water pump, radiator cap, and impeller, but everything was in good working order. Finally, by accident, we flipped the cylinder over and saw something odd in the water jacket. There was a plug stuck way down inside that was blocking the coolant from circulating through the engine. The engine was blown up when we got it, but why the prior owner had plugged up the water passage was a mystery. Gluttons for punishment, we rebuilt the CR125 engine for a third time. Third time is a charm, right? For a change, the MXA test riders came back from their assigned duties saying how surprised they were with how fun the bike was to ride. It handled well, ran crisply, and the suspension, chassis, and ergos were just what we expected. It didn't erase all the flaws and foibles of a stock 1994 Honda CR125, but it ran better than a 94 Honda, at least after the first two times. In every failure, there's something valuable to gain. We missed something that cost us a boatload of time and money, but in the end, our project bike ran great. And although it was ugly, we could cross it off our to-do list and get back to testing 2021 models. For more details on MXA's 1994 Honda CR125 restoration project, check out the full write-up on motocrossactionmag.com. And also, for more in-depth bike reviews, product tests, interviews, and more, you can pick up the latest edition of Motocross Action Magazine at your local newsstand or by subscribing to the magazine on our website. And also, before you go, click the subscribe button on YouTube to stay up to date with our latest videos. And if you haven't seen some of our most recent two-stroke videos, here's your chance.